back to the Maelstrom, ladies and gentlemen. We have another Drop Zone Commander battle report for you today. We're doing 2,500 points, so going back for a big game today, Shaltari versus Scourge. We are doing intel, so we've got all of our markers placed across the buildings. The Scourge will be on the far side of the table, and the Shaltari will be over here. We will be right back with the army list. So we have the Scourge.
So for my Oppressors battle group, I have a Desolator with a Master in it, and a squadron of 2 Reaver gunships, very small formation. Then for my first Vanguard, I have 2 squads of 3 Hunters in Marauder gunships with a squad of Reapers in a Marauder gunship. And then my second Vanguard is an exact duplicate, 2 squads of 3 Hunters and a squad of 3 Reapers. Then for my first Warrior Horde, I have 3 squads of Warriors with 2 bases, and they are all mounted Intruder Alphas. Then for my second Warrior Horde, I have 2 squads with 3 bases mounted in Invaders, and they are sharing a Marauder. And their support, they have a squad of 3 Ravagers mounted in a Harbinger that has a Vampire attached to it. And the little minder there is going to stand in for a Vampire because we do not have the model with us today. The next formation is the Invasion Host, and I have 2 squads of 2 Slayers. All 4 Slayers are carrying a base of Razor Worms, and they are all mounted in Marauders.
Because why not? If you're going to play with Razor Worms, go big or go home.
And then for my final group, I have an Occupation Patrol with 3 squads of 4 Prowlers, and they are all mounted in Intruder Betas.
Alright, so you have seen the Scourge. Look at that block of armor. This is going to be fun. We will be right back with the Shaltari. Shaltari contribution to war today. We will begin with our gate pool. We have 3 Eden medium gates and 4 Spirit light gates. And then finishing things off, we have a pair of Haven Terra gates. For our command group, we have a lot of unpainted stuff today. I got in my latest order this last week, and I wanted to try out all the new stuff. So we will have this painted before our next game. But for today, it is bare plastic and metal. My command group is a Gariel with a Prime War Chief level 6. Seems like suicide for somebody that old to be driving in something that has to get that close, but we're going to give it a try. He is joined by a squad of 6 Ronin in the exotic slot, and a squad of 2 Ocelot Battle Strider or War Striders in the other group. For my air wing, I have a lone War Spear. Wanted to give them another go today, try them out. My first standard is a pair of Tarantula Battle Striders, and they're backed up with 3 Kukris. My second standard is 3 Tomahawks, backed up by 3 Kukris. For my Shaltari infantry groups, I am trying out the Pungari Horde today. We've got 8 bases of Pungari. And then for our second group, we have 2 groups of Braves. For my War Fist formation, I have 2 Caimans that are in a squadron and 2 of the new Panther AA cannons that are in a squadron. And I forgot to mention the Yaris. They are also attached to my command group. So you have seen the armies and you have seen the tables. We are going to roll for initiative, and we will be back with turn in. The Shaltari won activation and gave Scourge first turn. They used their first activation to bring their command on. They brought in their Desolator here, along with their 2 gunships behind the structure here. The Shaltari answered that with their first sword point. We rolled the Tomahawks on here. They fired up the street and knocked 2 damage points from this small structure. They also brought their Kukris on through an Eden and brought them out here into the center to give some cover. Scourge went with their big Warrior Cabal next. They dumped infantry in both of these large structures and dumped their Ravagers out here in the street to give some air bubble there, because I did get my fast mover for turn 1. Shaltari activated their Pungari auxiliaries next. We brought them on down here through the Eden gate. We moved it on 3, dumped a gate here and disembarked, and dumped a gate here for a direct embark, and then moved the gate up, or the Eden up to here. Scourge went with their Invasion Host next, brought their heavies on here and put them behind this building. The infantry for the Shaltari were next, went with their normal Braves. We activated a pair of Spirits. One came on here and dumped into this building, and the other one came on down here and dumped into this structure. Scourge went with their second Warrior Cabal then, dumped infantry here, here, and down there. The Shaltari's response to that was to activate their fast mover. We left the model there on the street to show his path. He shot between the 2 large structures there and downed the intruder that brought these guys into play. Scourge went with their Vanguard following that, brought up their Reapers and their Marauder, or their Hunters, and dumped everything here in the street. They moved to there and disembarked to here to try to threaten my drop gates. Shaltari went with their command next. We used an Eden to bring the Gariel up to here. The Yaris stayed dematerialized. We used their normal first turn jump to bring in the Ronin, who punched here and destroyed 2 of the Reapers with their shots. Scourge answered with their second Vanguard. They brought in more of their Hunters, continued to pressure this flank, 1 here and 1 there, along with their Reapers in the backfield. Shaltari responded with their second sword point. The Tarantulas remained off the table, but their Kukris rolled in down here to give us some anti-air cover. Scourge finished off their turn with their occupation patrol, which they rolled all 3 groups of Prowlers up here on the commander. Finally, the Shaltari activated their War Fist. The Caimans came on here. They fired 1 of their Gauss Triads here to destroy 1 of the 3 Reapers. The rest of their fire went into this building, destroyed 4 hull points, and killed 1 of the infantry inside the building. And then the Panthers finished things off. They walked on here, fired 1 to the Marauder, did 2 damage points to him, and then the intruder that brought these guys on was splashed behind that building from the second Panther. So that is the end of turn 1. We're going to roll initiative now. The Shaltari have a command value 6, so they will have an 8. So the Scourge will need a 4 to tie. And with a 2, they don't. So Shaltari will have first activation, and we will be back as turn 2 comes to an end. Turn 2 rolls to an end. The Shaltari had initiative, so they activated their Pungari first. We scored a point here and here. This squad translated into the building next door, and this squad used the Terragate to move across and teleport into the Skyrise. The Scourge went next with their occupation patrol, moved up and dumped all their Prowlers here around the Gariel to try to pin him in there. The Shaltari answered with their first sword point. That was the Tarantula sword point. We moved the Kukris up and fired through the gap. We tried to destroy this dropship but missed it. And then we destroyed the 1 Prowler here against the building with the Kukris. Scourge went next with their Warrior Cabal. The 3-man group, both of them found a point. And 1 team moved their invader there in the back. The other team moved their invader up here and embarked. That Marauder tried to move, and 1 of the Panthers fired reaction fire and destroyed it. It came down on top of the invader and did 1 point of damage to the invader. Shaltari answered with their command. We used the first Eden Gate. The 2 of them were sitting here. 1 of them picked up the Gariel and moved him. The Eden faded back to here, and the second Eden that was here in the street moved over here and dropped the Gariel. The Scourge answered with their first Vanguard. They dropped 3 of the Hunters here in the street, and the other 3 Hunters swung to this flank and dropped off. Their lone Reaper that has survived and moved up here. Shaltari answered with the Braves. We found a point here and moved the Braves across the street and into the central big structure. And then down here on this flank, we also found a point and used an Eden to translate to this building. Scourge answered with their Vanguard, the second of their Vanguard. They moved all 6 Hunters up here to engage with the Gariel. We tried to reaction fire with the Panther on this Marauder, but we missed. And their Reapers stayed back here, took the objective from that squad, and are waiting there for extraction. The Shaltari went second with their second sword point next. We moved the Tomahawks up into the street some more and fired down through the gap. Between them and the Ocelots, we had done some damage there. The command also, the Ocelots, I forgot to mention, fired here. We did 8 damage points, but only managed to kill 1 guy last turn. No damage this turn. Scourge answered with their command. The Reaver gunships ran up on this flank, and the commander pushed another full move up here. The Shaltari then went with their arrowhead formation. We got our gun run off, came in here, and punched out 1 of the 2 Reavers, and then moved off the table over there. Scourge then went with their invasion host. As they tried to cross the street, the first 2 Kukris punched this one out and left the Slayers there in the street. The second one made the AA run across the last Kukri and deposited his Razor Worms here after dumping the Slayers here behind the building. Finally, Shaltari War Fist went. The Panthers just moved up because they had both reaction fired by that point. But the Caimans took an anti-grav boost and jumped across the building. He had attempted a jink and weave on this squad here, but we did espionage it. So because of that and the boost, we were able to get flanking fire and knock 2 of the 3 Hunters out of this squad. Finally, the Scourge went with their 2nd Infantry. The squad down here that was stranded found an objective. They have left their building and are hoofing it for the edge of the board. The squad that was here and stranded found an objective. They were the ones that jumped out here in the street. And the squad down here found a point and used their intruder to transfer over here. So it turns out those AA shots early in the game that I was thinking might matter ended up really did matter. So we have stranded 2 objectives on the table. At that point, it is 4-3 in favor of the Shaltari, but the Scourge are holding on to 2 objectives at the moment. So that is the end of turn 2. We're going to dice for initiative now for turn 3. And the Shaltari have a 9 total. So the Scourge will need a 5 to tie it, a 6 to take it. With a 5, they will tie it. So we're going to roll again. Alrighty, so we have a 10. And the Scourge have a 6. So Shaltari will have first activation. And we will be back after turn 3 comes to an end. And it was an insane turn. All kinds of stuff died. All kinds of stuff happened. The Shaltari won initiative and started things off with their War Fist. We moved the Panthers up here, and we went ahead and shot down the Marauder dropship here and the one back there to try to strand all those tanks so they can't bounce them objectives any faster than they already are. The Caimans activated also, moved over here, and fired and destroyed one of the hunters. Two. There were 2 left there. Destroyed both of those. The Scourge activated their Vanguard next. They moved these tanks up. In the process of that, I knew he was gunning for my infantry, so I went ahead and played a quick thinking here, scored a point, and threw the Pungari up to the next building just to get them out of there. These hunters then advanced, shot back here, and did some pretty significant damage to this building. They weren't alone. There were all kinds of dropships picking at it over the turn, but total did 19 damage points and killed 3 of the Braves inside the building. Shaltari Command went next. We activated the Gariel and swung him up here. He fired all of his guns at the 2 hunters before they could get their skimmer buff up and did nothing. Either missed or did no damage with that. The Ocelots moved up and tried to splash this small building because one of the hunters was touching it, but we managed 8 of the 10 points and it survived. For the rest of our damage, the Yaris circled up down here on the intruders and did nothing. All of their shots either missed or did no damage. The Ronin, however, dropped out in the street, and as you can see, there are blood drops everywhere. We slaughtered all but one of the Prowlers through the Ronin and also a little bit of shooting later. 1 Prowler survived that turn. Next up, the Scourge sent in their invasion host. They came in down here, dumped more Razor Worms into this building for future turns, and stood down here in the street, shot 4, count them, 4 Slayers at this squad of Kukris and got 1. The Shaltari then answered with their sword point. We swung the Kukris out this way. They fired and destroyed this Marauder dropship, and then the Tomahawks fired all 3 shots here and cored one of the Slayers before moving back behind the building. Scourge answered with their 2nd Vanguard. The only survivors at this point were these 2 hunters. They swung back, fired on the Gariel, and both of them missed. The Shaltari then did their Pungari. We searched here and found an objective. We used the gate behind it to teleport out, and that gate went into the Eden, which is now leaving the table. The Pungari used the Spirit Gate up here to swing around and teleport into this structure. Scourge answered with their command. The commander moved around behind this building. He's trying to stay out of sight of the Panthers. And the gunship moved down here and did what he did last game, continues to do well. Fired and killed one of the Tomahawks off of the end. Shaltari answered with their Braves. We found a point here, but then the CQB, he played enemy within to steal D6 of my dice. I espionaged that, and he played an espionage on my espionage. So he took 2 of my dice. I killed 1 base of Razor Worms, and the Razor Worms gobbled up all the Braves and are in control of the building. Scourge then activated their infantry. They moved one of the groups into here, and the other group, they moved back there to take that objective and start towards the edge of the table with it. Shaltari answered with Air Wing in an attempt to bust this vehicle here, but we rolled a 1 on our gun run, and since the Pungari are busy in the buildings, they did not have time to spot, so we missed there. The Scourge then activated their 2nd infantry unit. The little squad that still has a transport found a point and moved up here to CQB with me. Because the Braves had earlier in the turn, I forgot to mention this squad of Braves. They moved to the wall, fired a small arm shot and did nothing, and killed one of the Prowlers with their Gauss shot. Then we went to Sword Point 2 for the Shaltari. That was the Tarantulas. And these Kukris, These kukris moved over, shot and destroyed one more of the prowlers and both of these intruders. And then we moved this Eden gate back here and dropped off the tarantulas in the gap here. And we are moving buildings around now. Finally, the Scourge activated their occupation host. The last intruder gunship fired and destroyed one of the Ronin on the end. The Prowler jumped up and crawled up on me, but could not find purchase and was unable to land a shot there. So that is the end of turn 3. Right now it is Shaltari 7, Scourge 4. There are multiple objectives running around on the table right now. And as you can see, we played all kinds of cards. Some of them that I didn't mention, we have a raised shields on this gate. And we played an assisted targeting here to get a hit with that one of these Ronin. That was where we played that card. So we're going to roll for initiative again, going into turn 4. The Shaltari have a 10, and the Scourge rolled a 4, which will not do it. So the Shaltari will have first activation, and we will be back as turn 4 rolls to an end. Turn 4 comes to an end. It was also an eventful one. Shaltari won the initiative and started things off with command. We advanced the pair of Ocelots. The first one fired through the gap on the Slayer here, but only did him 1 damage point. The second one fired to this building and knocked out a handful of points, but didn't do anything there. We forgot to mark that, but no big deal. The Scourge activated their first infantry group, which was, or I'm sorry, I haven't finished up command yet. Let's finish that up, because that was a big activation. Gariel moved up here and fired here with his microwave cannon, destroyed one of the hunters that was in the street. The Yaris moved around here and busted the final intruder and then slid into the side here. And the Ronin, we played a crazy pilot and landed on top of this one Prowler right beside him. We knocked out the last Prowler. We fired the rest of the guns at the hunters that were here and the Reaper, but did no damage. And they got back in their dropships. The dropships dusted off and moved up to here. Then the Scourge activated infantry. These guys activated, went to the wall to shoot at the commander. We played a dazzle foe to make him hit us on 6s, so he didn't do anything there with the plasma. But he did find a point here, and the other guys are back here. Their invader left the table with the objective that they had. Next up, and their walkers also just stood still back here with the AA bubble. Next up, the Shaltari activated their first sword point. We moved the kukris to here. They fired, and I think we picked it up. They destroyed, or no, they fired back here and destroyed this dropship. And the Tomahawks moved out and fired here and finished that Slayer off. Scourge activated their first Vanguard next. They moved this, no, it was these Slayers. Moved all of these. No, it wasn't them. I've got it backwards. It was this lone hunter. He moved over here and fired into this building before I vacated it. Did me 4 damage points and killed one of the Pungari in the process. Let's see. Who was next? Next we had the Shaltari. They brought the Pungari in. Scored a point there in that building. Or I'm sorry, not a point. Found an objective. Teleported through this gate, which is now leaving with the objective. And then teleported down to here and took this building. The other Pungari decided to stay here. There just wasn't a good way to get them out this turn. So we left them there and went to the walls to get our forward air observers. Next up for Scourge was infantry. They moved their 2-man squads, found a point here, moved out and shot at the commander, but to no effect. And the other squad was locked up in a CQB, so no dice there. Next up was air wing for the Shaltari. We ran down here on the gunships again and did him 1 damage point as we went across him. The next activation for Scourge was their second Vanguard. That was when they moved these guys and shot everything they had, dropships and 6 hunters and a Reaper, all into this building, did 18 of the 20 points to it, and killed 8 Pungari out of that squad. But they are still there for the moment. So activation is going to be crucial there to see if we can get them out of that building before it collapses. Let's see. Shaltari were up for a sword point next. These kukris moved around and fired through the gap, destroyed this Marauder, and the Tarantulas climbed the building, fired all of their stuff into these hunters, but could not score any hits. Everything missed. Then we went with command for the Scourge. Down here, they moved their commander again, just hanging out behind the building. Moved this dropship out, fired again, scored another hit, but I finally made a passive, so his tank killing days finally came to an end. Because after that, we activated well, first we did Braves. We want to go ahead and kill this CQB. We killed the 4 men. The 5 of them killed one of us, and the Braves turned into chickens. Not so brave, it turns out. Failed their fortitude and fell out in the street. Finally, he activated his invasion host, played a relentless advance on his slayers down here, and moved them up, and fired them into this building, did 10 damage points, and killed 7 Pungari in the process. So a good activation there for them. And then we ended things with Warfist on the Shaltari end. We moved the Panthers forward. One of them turned out, fired down here, and cut this gunship down finally. The second one moved up here and fired through the gap on the Slayer, but was unable to get past his armor because of the energy and armor being equivalent. These 2 Caimans moved up here, fired all their lasers into him to no effect, and fired downrange because those guys also took a relentless advance. We killed the first one with the Gauss Triad, but couldn't see the other one. So he is set with an activation win to get that guy off the table. So that is the end of turn 4. We are going to dice for initiative once more and see where we're standing. The Shaltari have a 10, and the Scourge have a 9. So Shaltari will be going first again, and we will be back as turn 5 is coming through. All right, we have finished up turn 5. Shaltari started things off with their Pungari. We scored a point here, and we used a extremely convoluted form of teleportation to bring the other squad from the end into this building. The gate that was right here moved over slightly, put them in that building, and then carried the objective off the table. This squad came through that Eden, or that Spirit, which then shot over here, and used the Eden that was here behind this big structure, moved into the open, dropped the Haven that was in dematerialized state, and dropped the rest of the Pungari here in this building. The Scourge answered that activation with their invasion host. They moved their Slayers back here. Their Razor Worms had scored a point last turn, moved over here. They scored a point this turn. We forgot to mention that last time. They bombarded this building with them and did several damage points, killed several Pungari. The Shaltari went back with Warfist. We moved our Jaguars up here. The Jaguars fired through the gap and punched at these guys, but did 1 damage point. And I'm forgetting something that happened at the very beginning of the turn. The Shaltari drew a false diplomacy, and we also played a foresight after my first activation to keep his Reapers on the table so that I could get the Pungari out before they were destroyed. That gave the Cayman's second activation because his first one was forced to be the invasion host. The Caymans moved up, slid out here, and shot the last Reaper off of the table. The Scourge answered, I guess I should finish up the Warfist first. Like I said, the guys here, the Panthers, fired here and did 1 damage point. The Scourge then answered with their first Vanguard group. They moved these tanks around here. 2 of them fired on my infantry that had fallen out of the building and destroyed them. The third one fired through here to the Tarantulas and did no damage. And their dropships came over here and destroyed 1 of them. He also moved his Reaper here into the open. Then Shaltari answered with command. We brought the Ocelots up here. They fired on this building in an attempt to destroy it before those guys made their search. One of the Ocelots missed, and the other one rolled a 1 to do damage. So we did nothing with the Ocelots. However, we dropped off the Ronin again with their lightning reflexes trying to threaten that objective. They fired up here and busted a ton of points out, did 8 points, and no falling masonry. We didn't do any damage to the guys inside. Next up was Scourge. They activated infantry. And I also forgot, I keep getting crossed up here, not finishing my activations. The Gariel moved up here and destroyed 1 of the Ravagers with his E12 shots. And then the Yaris, which were the last part of that, moved over here and shot down this dropship to keep them from extracting any objective that they might draw. The Scourge activated their small infantry then. They did unfortunately find an objective. A point would have been a better result for them at this point. But they found an objective, stepped out here in the street, and handed it to this Reaper. The other group of them went to the wall, fired on the Gariel to no effect. Next up was Shaltari's sword point. We moved the Tarantulas around, and the Tarantulas fired here, trying to kill off this Reaper to get him to drop that objective, but were unable to. The kukris that are attached to them. One moved out, fired, and killed the last of the infantry that were there, and the other fired back here and knocked 2 points out of this marauder. The Scourge answered with their second vanguard. This guy flew up here, punched some more points out of this building, along with, I forgot to mention, this squad out of that first group. They all fired here, did 8 points, and killed a handful of Pungari with falling masonry. The Reapers from that formation were destroyed already. They were the ones in the back area. Next up for Shaltari was their second sword point. We moved the Tomahawks up into the street. They fired here and did no damage against the Slayers. The Kukris moved up and fired on the Harbinger because it was moving around to bomb this building, and did 1 damage point to it. Next up, Scourge activated their big infantry. These guys went to the wall. Their buddies back there in the back fired from the open. We fired a bomb from here. All of that shot into this building, did a ton of damage, left only 3 Pungari standing by the end of the turn. The surviving Ravager moved over here and used his 2 separate cannons and punched both of the Spirit Gates out to strand the Ronin there in the backfield. The Shaltari then went with their Air Wing, which was their final activation for the turn. We ran him down this street since his AA had shot, and fired on the Harbinger, but did no damage, unfortunately. Then the Scourge finished things off with command. Their commander turned around with his D6 +1 demolisher in an attempt to destroy this building and rolled a 1 to damage it. So no help there. So that is the end of turn 5. We had already rolled for initiative because we were trying to work out final points. We thought it was beyond reach for one faction, but it's still within grasp if a few key things happen. So we're going to go ahead and go into the next turn there. It is 12-10 in favor of the Shaltari right now, not counting the objectives that are still on the table. We will be back following the final turn. Alrighty, we have finished up turn 6, and we did a couple of activations since the Shaltari won initiative. We checked here, we rolled a 5, and the Pungari pulled off their 3rd objective for the game. That medium gate, or small gate, the Spirit, did come back into readiness, so we moved it on, picked them up, and moved them off again. The Pungari down there found a point, and then the Scourge got their invader back. It came on, snatched that objective from the Ronin, and left the table. So at that point, we did a couple of fast dice down here just to see, because he didn't have any tanks that were close enough to get a hold of that objective. I went ahead and rolled my War Fist next, moved them over here, and punched that guy out. So that objective is laying as the game comes to an end. So we're going to go ahead and call it there. The final score was Shaltari 15 to Scourge 12. The Scourge got shot up really badly, but they still held in there till the very last second. If it had not been for that bonus roll on the Pungari search, this would have been a very different game. So, as always, give us a like on Facebook and subscribe here on YouTube. That's the best way to see our new content as it comes out. Let us leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought of the armies. And as always, thank you for spending time with us today at the Maelstrom.